I have grave concerns out here at the Jewish cemetery in Weißensee, which is the largest Jewish cemetery in the city, if not the country, if not Europe. It's big. And it sort of came into being after the central cemetery was essentially closed at the beginning of the 20th century. Or more so that it became the place to go once that was closed. And Weißensee is an area that's sort of, as the name suggests, it's around a sea, a little lake, and it's in northeast Berlin. And we can see war damage here too. But for the most part, this place escaped a lot of war destruction and vandalism just because it's so far from the city center. And it's beautiful. It's, as you can see, kind of overgrown with ivy. It's got monumental crypts, a lot of them from the 19th century. Goldschmidt family here. Actually get an insect on the camera. And it's pretty big. Again, the aesthetic here is to let nature take over, so as you go deeper into the sections, you can see lots of trees and overgrowth. And that's just the practice. Get this massive, looks like Ashcroft, yeah, or Ashrot. But this is like a temple unto itself. Holy cow, this thing's big. There's some crypts inside. But most of them are more modest. And this place has a war section, has modern, current sections, and it has, of course, people of note. I'm already in here at the halfway point, and I'm going to walk towards the back. Really nice kind of cobblestone paths in here. And there's a super colorful grave up ahead on the left. I'm not sure what the story is with it, but it definitely stands out. I've been here a few times. But lots of 19th century folks in here. So these have really stood the test of time, considering all that the city has been through. And here comes this super colorful family plot here. I'm not sure what's going on with this guy. But it's all this kind of painted ornament. Lewinson Netter. Let's just take a quick look at the year in here. Approximate years, looks like late 19th century, 1890s. So nothing else looks like this in here. It's pretty audacious in its own way. Celebratory, I guess. Everything else is kind of black and gray and a typical kind of morose graveyard. But some nice plants here and there, and I really love the ivy covered stuff. But here you see a good example of this kind of overgrowth that's allowed to happen here. The more prominent graves are towards the front, and I guess I'll hit those on the way out. It's a kind of a light gray day, and as usual, it's always shaded in here because of the forest nature of it. Here's a beauty. Rosalie Ernst has this pavilion with a really nice mosaic, even a kind of a tiled entrance. It's really like a little temple. Gorgeous. Rosalie and Adolf Ernst. Rosalie died pretty young, 1888 or 98. So only in her 20s. And so I have to assume that's about when this was built, late 19th century. Beautiful color on these trees here. And some flowering bushes. We get a bunch of groundskeeping vehicles here, parked in this, it's almost like a little central plaza. Come to this section, it's like a big crossroads. And I never see anybody past this point, very rare. People venture this far for some reason, I don't know, I'm sure some do. But usually I see folks in the section we just came from. This is a beautiful colonnade here, just this pathway leading to the end of the cemetery. It's quite big, massive really. I mean, look at all the forestation out there. It's gorgeous. But, you know, that's the thing. I mean, it's really hard to access the graves in the center if you have interest. I think it's forbidden to clear it out. You know, it's like if you have a family member there, you want to get to them, then you can probably cut down some of this stuff. But, or ask that it be cut down. Just going to take a little side trip here. These are pretty cool looking. Schmoller. Arenheim. So we're only about one section away from the eastern wall, you can see there. Or western, let me think about this. Which way am I walking here? I think about, it's hard to tell, it's a bit disorienting here. In any case, I'm walking far away from the entrance. I know at some point in the 70s or 80s, they wanted to put a highway through here, which, oh, I don't know if you saw that fox, he just ran across the trail. Lots of foxes, I have to say. I have seen a few in the neighborhoods. There's lots of rabbits, so there's lots of food for foxes. And I don't know if that's, I mean, this is a city, so it's always been developed, but, you know, back in the U.S., the wildlife is encroaching on all of the living quarters, living spaces, because they don't have any wild habitat left. As developers come in, they displace these animals, so, I mean, there could be a little of that going on. But we often see wild animals in cemeteries. A lot of places for them to hide and do their business. Let's see here. Oops, I'm losing my hat. Gotta wear the kippah. So there is one down here that I know about. They actually sell a little book here, and I have a copy, but it's back home in the U.S. because there's a lot of prominent people here. But, you know, they are specific to Berlin history. And the more internationally known ones I know of are kind of up towards the front. But I wonder, I think I just passed the person that I'm aware of. It's hard to tell. Yeah, let me backtrack a little bit. So it's a family crypt up here. No, maybe I haven't come across it yet. I'll catch it on the way back if I miss it, because he's sort of the only guy I know way out here. And I'm headed towards the war section. So there's a kind of a World War I memorial area, World War I soldier area, which I've mentioned this in the other Jewish cemetery video. It speaks to the betrayal and what this cemetery represents, and why we don't see graves after the 30s, like this missing gap between like the 30s and the 50s. Because these people who thought they were part of this culture and this community for hundreds of years were all betrayed, and here are their ancestors. So this is the most, I think, significant place in the city if you want to really get a sense of the devastation of the war and the government's attack on its own city and its own citizens. I didn't pass the guy. Here he is. He's always a bit further than I think, and of course this has got the glare of the sun. There's any way around this here. There you can see it briefly, perhaps. Garbáty Rosenthal. So this guy owned a tobacco factory, and there's a square in Pankow named after him. Basically, if you take the S-Bahn to the Pankow station, which is just a little neighborhood in northeast Berlin, you end up at Garbáty Square or Platz. And you can imagine that, you know, people smoked a lot in the 20th century. And all of those World War I soldiers were smoking his cigarettes. And probably the World War II soldiers as well. But his factory, being Jewish owned, was commandeered during the reign of the Third Reich. So, as well, his private property. But yeah, his memory lives on here and in history. There's an interesting family crypt. Mueller. It's got quite an interior. I like this patina here. 1917, 1928 death dates. It's taken me a while to get out here. This place is big. One can get lost. There's rows and rows to my right. Kind of an unusual one. But some of the main people here up front, you have Herbert Baum, the street that leads up to this cemetery is Herbert Baumstrasse. So he was an anti-fascist Jewish youth organizer, and the Gestapo captured and tortured and killed him, and so they have a memorial to him and his resistance group at the front. And you have Leo Baeck, if you've heard of the Leo Baeck Institute. He's here. Lesser Uri, who's impressionist painter. Worth looking up if you've never heard of him or seen his work. And one or two others. I mean, there's a bunch of others, of course, but there's one or two others up front that I know about that I can't think of right now. This is cool looking. It's just interesting to see the aging on these things sometimes and the different ways in which they collapse and get taken over by nature. The moss, the ivy, the cracks, the angles. The groundskeepers here are doing a bang-up job, though. I gotta say, they're always out here. So even though it looks fairly overrun by nature, it is still highly maintained, especially along the paths. So, coming to the end finally. See if I can find the entrance for that little World War I section, or really just war veteran section that happens to have a lot of World War I vets. I'm going to pause it here. This is just forest. Finally found this section here, which wasn't really at the end. It's about 2 rows up from the end. So I just kind of had to methodically comb through the rows here. Pretty cool memorials here on the outside of the wall. (1919), 2732, 22. Let's see what we can see in here. So it says 1915 on the column here. 1914. It's got lion heads. So imagine at the time, these people had no idea what was coming in this country in a mere 10, 15 years. And so they built this beautiful memorial for the veterans, who would all be unwanted citizens in a short time, and their children and grandchildren driven out and murdered. So here again, the lion. 1914 to 1918. So all World War I soldiers. These are all a bit hard to read now. See if I can find a clear one, a really clear one at some point. Maybe down the hill here. Yeah, the carving is not that deep on these, so time hasn't been too kind. Max Kudniewski, 1875 to 1916. Bernard Fuchs, 1916. These all look like 1916 graves. Well, that's depressing, no matter how you slice it. And again, you know, well, World War I is a complicated conflict. They say Germany was an aggressor in that conflict, certainly against France. So I'm sure there are many, 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 many more war dead out in the fields. I like these lion heads at the entrance. More out here. I don't know if these are older. They look older. They're mossier. Let's just take a sample here. Hugo Pin. Yeah. Oh no. 1864 to 1932. Okay, so these are probably just some of the first victims of the Third Reich. This is interesting here. What is that about? Some completely worn signage. Huh. Yeah, it must have been the old field signs. You can see it has the same shape here. Coming out to the front end here, this is a beautiful section here. I love the writing on this stone from 1893 and 36 respectively. And just the forested nature of this section on both sides. Using that. There's a massive family crypt for the Louis or the Levis. Late 19th century. Bunch of groundskeepers here. Okay, so here's some of the prominent stones. There's Leo Baeck, died in '56 in London. And you can see all of the stones from the visitors. And Lesser Uri, the Impressionist painter. Again, lots of stones on top. 1931 in Berlin. 70 years old, it looks like. Here's a Warschauer. I don't know what the relation is to the Warschauer Strasse. Probably one and the same. Looks like a rabbi. 1930. Here I'm at the back of the Herbert Baum Memorial, and we can see all of the his comrades there listed in the back. Beautiful old building here. It's not a synagogue, but it's just kind of a memorial hall. Another survivor. These beautiful rows down here. I like this one up here that has a snake in it, which is usually some kind of a medical symbol. I want to say this is Dr. Max Jaffe, doctor, medicine professor, university, 1841 to 1911. So it's got a nice menorah up top from 1911. Hermann Staub, 1904. I don't know who these Lewandowskis are, but they've got a lot of visitors. And a beautiful stone. It's a gold leaf. And this place also has the family crypts along the wall, and some of them are pretty beautiful. I really like this one right here for the Ledermann. Little Ten Commandments motif on the top. Very cool.